At first glance, cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes seem almost identical. They're both small, sweet, colorful, and often tossed into salads or eaten straight from the container. Most people grab whichever is cheaper or looks fresher at the grocery store, rarely stopping to think about whether they're actually different. But here's the surprise. Cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes are not interchangeable. They come from different breeding histories, have different textures, different flavor profiles, and even behave differently when cooked. So today, we're breaking down the real story behind cherry tomatoes versus grape tomatoes, how they were created, why they taste different, and which one actually works better depending on how you use them. Let's get into it, right here on History of Simple Things. Cherry tomatoes are the older of the two. Their name isn't random. They were literally bred to resemble cherries in both size and shape. The earliest cherry tomatoes can be traced back to wild tomato varieties in South America, particularly in regions around Peru and Ecuador. These early tomatoes were small, round, and naturally sweet. When tomatoes were introduced to Europe and later refined through selective breeding, farmers realized that smaller tomatoes ripened faster and often had more concentrated flavor. Cherry tomatoes became popular in home gardens because they were easy to grow, resilient, and produced fruit quickly. Unlike many modern crops, cherry tomatoes weren't designed for shipping efficiency. They were designed for taste. Their thin skin and high water content made them delicate, but incredibly juicy. Grape tomatoes, on the other hand, are much newer. They didn't become widely available until the late 20th century. In fact, grape tomatoes were intentionally engineered for supermarkets. In the 1990s, plant breeders were trying to solve a problem. How do you make a small tomato that won't burst during shipping, won't spoil quickly, and still tastes good enough to sell in large quantities? The answer was the grape tomato. Grape tomatoes were bred to be firmer, thicker-skinned, and more uniform in shape. Their elongated oval appearance wasn't just aesthetic, it helped them pack tightly into containers without crushing each other. This made them ideal for mass distribution and long-distance transport. So while cherry tomatoes evolved naturally over time, grape tomatoes were designed with logistics in mind. Yes, cherry tomatoes are round and grape tomatoes are oval, but that's only the surface difference. Cherry tomatoes grow with a looser internal structure. Inside, they have more gel-like pulp surrounding the seeds. This is why they tend to burst when you bite into them. That pop is one of their defining features. Grape tomatoes, by contrast, have a denser interior. They contain less watery pulp and more solid flesh. This is why they hold their shape better when sliced or roasted. This internal structure affects everything, from texture to flavor release to how they cook under heat. One of the most noticeable differences between the two is the skin. Cherry tomatoes have thin, delicate skins. When you bite into one, there's very little resistance. The skin breaks almost instantly, releasing juice and flavor all at once. Grape tomatoes have noticeably thicker skins. You might not consciously notice it at first, but your teeth do. That thicker skin slows down moisture loss, which is one reason grape tomatoes last longer in your fridge. This also explains why some people love grape tomatoes, while others find them slightly chewy. That texture is intentional. Cherry tomatoes are often described as sweeter, and there's a scientific reason for that. Because they have higher water content, cherry tomatoes release sugars quickly when bitten. That immediate burst of sweetness is why they're so popular for snacking. Grape tomatoes have a more concentrated flavor. They're still sweet, but it's a slower, more subdued sweetness. Some people describe grape tomatoes as meatier or more tomato-forward rather than sugary. Neither is better, just different. Cherry tomatoes shine when eaten raw, while grape tomatoes tend to hold their flavor better during cooking. If you've ever roasted both types side by side, you've probably noticed something interesting. Cherry tomatoes collapse faster. Their thin skins split, releasing juice that caramelizes quickly. This makes them perfect for sauces, pastas, and roasted dishes where you want tomato juices to mix into the dish. Grape tomatoes keep their shape longer. They blister instead of bursting, which makes them ideal for sheet pan meals, skewers, or dishes where you want visible tomato pieces rather than sauce. This difference is why professional chefs often choose grape tomatoes for presentation-heavy dishes. Here's where grape tomatoes really win. Cherry tomatoes spoil faster. Their thin skin and high moisture content make them more vulnerable to mold, splitting, and dehydration. Grape tomatoes were specifically bred to last longer. Their thicker skins reduce moisture loss and slow down bacterial growth. This is why grocery stores often stock grape tomatoes more consistently than cherry tomatoes. If you've ever wondered why grape tomatoes still look decent after 2 weeks while cherry tomatoes wrinkle, that's not luck. That's design. Cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes may sit side by side in the produce aisle, but their stories couldn't be more different. One is a naturally sweet, delicate fruit shaped by tradition and taste. The other is a modern, engineered solution designed to survive the realities of global food systems. Next time you reach for one, you'll know exactly why it looks, tastes, and behaves the way it does, and that tiny difference might just change how you cook. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.